to my channel, Rue's Life. So it's a beautiful bank holiday weekend here, and today I'm going to talk about keeping chickens. So while I'm still in the barn, I'm going to just talk about the basic requirements that you're going to need for keeping chickens. Obviously housing is important and I'm going to talk about that, but just while I'm here I'm just going to show you the feed that we use. So you're going to need a decent bin that's vermin proof that you can keep your feed in. Now the galvanised bins are better because obviously rats and so on and mice can't gnaw through them, but because we're in and out of the barn so regularly we don't have a vermin problem here, so it's just important that we've got bins. So here you can see this is our chuck mix. Now there are lots of different opinions on what to feed chickens. We feed a mix. Some people say mixes aren't good because they'll pick out the bits they don't want. We don't find that as a problem. We find they eat the whole lot. And this is a really nice chuck mix, which you can just see there. And it contains layers, pellets and various grains. It's actually got sultanas and flaked maize in it as well. It's a really nice blend and our chickens seem to really like it, and they hoover up the whole lot. They don't just pick out little bits. And in this bin here, if I just scoop some out for you to see, this is actually chick crumb, and that's because we've got little baby chicks at the moment. It is a good idea. You can buy a very similar consistency to that, which is like a layers mash. And we always start our new chucks off on that, especially the ex-batteries, because they really struggle initially with the grains. So we find that the mash is better. You can feed it as it is, just dry like that, or you can soak it with a little bit of warm water or even cold water to make it more palatable and easier for them to eat. And as I say, when we first take on any ex-battery hens, there we find that really palatable and nice for them to start with, and then we progress them onto some layers pellets and then onto the mix. This is a really important piece of kit. So in here I've got a scrubby brush, some heavy duty rubber gloves, and the all important scraper and a little old bucket. I'll just pop those back in there. And the reason for having this little bucket with bits and bobs in is for daily cleaning. So every day I pick up the poops and we just put fresh bedding in, and then at least once a week, or depending on how mucky they've been, the bedding area and the chicken area gets a full clean out, and that's where the brush and the scraper are really useful. Chicken poo doesn't have crust on it, it's quite glue-like in consistency, so it's really useful to have that scraper. There's all sorts of different beddings that you can buy or use, and we favour shredded paper just because I have a vast supply of that. So here you can see this is just a big bag of shredded paper, and the reason we use this, two reasons. One is I get it free from work, so why pay if you don't need to, and it's recycling, so it's good for the environment. And also we used to use wood shavings, and a couple of seasons back we had a really bad red mite infestation, and we found that the shavings were really harbouring them. Since we've moved on to the shredded paper, fingers crossed, touch wood, we haven't had a red mite issue. We do also use preventative measures, which I will talk about. And then other important bits of equipment you're going to need. These are just soaking at the moment because we've used them and they're dirty, so I'm just cleaning them. But we've got several of these carriers. They're essentially, pet carriers for rabbits or cats or small dogs. But if ever, just for transporting chucks that when we get them and bring them home, if you need to house them for a short period, if you want to get them in while you clean an area or move them, or if you need to transport them to the vet, you do need a safe carrier for them. And then you can just see here amongst the hose pipe, there's lots and lots here of tubs and pots and water carriers and so on. Again, they're having a good clean, but I will show you the setup that we've got and what we use. So I'm just going to show you what we use, and I can highly recommend anybody keeping chucks wherever you keep them. This electric netting, which you can see here, that's the little generator, and it runs from just a leisure battery. We have two of those, so we usually have one on charge and one attached to the fence to keep that live, and that is not to keep the chickens in, but to keep out the likes of foxes and badgers. Since I've been using this, and I've been using it for 20-30 years for chickens in various places, I've never had a fox or a badger problem. I did lose my first chickens to the fox, and I actually lost my second lot of chickens going back about 30 years to a badger, and I never want to experience that again. I just felt awful, completely responsible and devastated to lose them. So this electric netting goes all the way around our area, and you can buy as much or as little as you need. It is relatively expensive to first set up, but it's worth every penny, and if you look after it, it does last. So here we are in the chicken area. So as you can see there, we've got a hen house, which I will show you. They've got a good area, lots of grass. They will rapidly turn grass into mud, especially through the winter months. We don't free range ours around the garden, mainly because we've got two greyhounds, and chickens and greyhounds are not a good combination, but also just they will wreck your garden, they will scratch all your plants, and also we're on a farm, and if they wander too far, there are foxes, and foxes are around during the daytime, and again badgers. So we've got a good area for them here, and it keeps them safe. Personally, I like to keep them within an enclosed area that I can keep an eye on them, where they can free range but without going too far, and where they're safe in the boundaries of the electric netting. So I'll just show you some of the chickens. So these are some of the girls, as you can see, happily dazzling about here. And these are all ex-battery chickens, and anybody starting out, I cannot recommend it highly enough. They're really affectionate, they're really rewarding, and they're actually really easy to keep, and they're generally quite handleable. Some of the more pedigreed varieties, and I have had some over the years, can be a little bit flighty and more susceptible to sort of, you know, disease and so on. So to start out with, you can't go wrong, and for me it's just so rewarding to take these little guys from having such a rough life. They do look awful when they first come to you, and some of them can be sick. They've barely any feathers, and usually they've got sores, and they just, I cry every time you collect them. But with time and patience, they turn into these beautiful, beautiful chickens. And we have got a couple of other coloured ones roaming around somewhere. I shall look out for them and show them to you. So obviously water is incredibly important for these birds. So as you can see, we've got a water tower here. There's a smaller water tower over there, and they are checked daily and filled and cleaned at least once a week. Chickens are quite dirty, they tend to scratch. There's one having a little drink there, and they'll often scratch mud into their waterers and their feeders, so you do need to keep an eye on those. And they also tend to poop in everything as well, so it's really important for hygiene to keep everything clean, and obviously to ensure they've got a plentiful, fresh, constant supply of water, and also keeping their feeders clean. And this is the little feeder that we use. Again, there's various types on the market, but anything that will keep the feed trickling through so they can eat it and keep the worst of any rain and moisture out. There's nothing in it at the moment, darling. So this is just a little feeder that the lid lifts off, you pour the feed in. I'm sorry girls, you think I'm feeding you, don't you? And I'm not. And the feed comes out in the bottom, and they can eat it from there. In terms of environmental enrichment, there's so many different things that you can do. You can see we've got various sort of branches and logs, and they like to hop on and off those, and occasionally we'll roll those logs, and there's usually some bugs underneath, and they all have a bit of a bug fest. They like to go and pick and scratch and eat the bugs that are lurking underneath. We're actually very fortunate in that we've used an orchard area, so we've got the trees here which are really good for shade, and the added bonus for the chickens is they get the windfall. There are damson and apple in here, and if I just turn around, although it's not in the enclosure, just next to it we've got a big pear tree, so again the pears plop down and they can have a bit of a feast at harvest time. And then I'm just moving here towards our main chicken coop, so you can see there's a little hen house. I'll show you the back in a minute, in the laying area, and the sleeping quarters. Again, some people have separate laying and sleeping quarters. I've never done that. We always just have a hen house. They sleep and we keep it clean, and they lay. That's the way I look after my chickens. And you can see there's a bottom area there as well. So you can see with our hen house there's actually steps to go up and down into the back, which they're all coping with fine now. But just a word of advice, if you're taking on ex-batteries, they will not cope with those steps when they first come, because especially the ones that have been caged and not been able to move, they're often very weak in their legs. So this is just the inside of the hen house, and you can see the shredded paper there. You can put newspaper underneath. We have 8 X batteries that snuggle up in here at night quite successfully. You can get up to 12 in this space, and actually through the winter months them being sort of packed in a little bit together is actually good for them, because it helps to keep them warm. So this area here at the moment is like our nursery area. We've actually got some chicks at the moment. There's a hen in there, the brown one, with her babies. And then on the other side, if I can do this without my shadow being in the way, we've got a little white hen with her babies. I'll just see if I can get some footage of those for you. So they really are adorable. We're having the best time enjoying them, watching them exploring and growing up. Listening to them with their little cheep cheeps. So in each of these little areas, they've got some grass, there's a couple of little shrubs, they've got a little log that they can hop on and off, they've got some sleeping quarters where they go at night, and then on the board there is food and water. So if you can just see this little A-frame, this is actually a really useful piece of kit. So at the moment it's being doubled up as part of our nursery pen, but normally we have this A-frame and it will have these 4 hurdles around the edge with netting, and we use that if we need to isolate a chicken, and that could be if we bring a new chicken into the flock. I will always isolate them for at least 7 to 10 days and introduce them to the flock slowly, and that is for the possibility of them bringing any disease into the flock, so keeping them separate where they can't get to each other, and also so they can actually be introduced to each other slowly to help prevent with bullying. And if ever we have a sick hen, we've got a nice isolation area where they can be put on their own and then they can be nursed as an individual, and that will happen from time to time. So I'm just here in our tack room, but we have a little drawer in the tack room which has kind of got some, we've got a cupboard in the bottom and a drawer in the top which has kind of medical supplies for all the farm animals really, but yeah, it's just they're kept in the tack room. So for the chickens, you do need to be aware of parasites, both internal and external. So we use this Flubenvet wormer. We also use this Xeno. Now the Flubenvet is licensed for chickens, and it's a really good and easy to use worm powder. This is called Xeno, and it's actually a spot on that you pop on the back of the neck. It isn't licensed for chickens. It is licensed for so pet birds, but it isn't licensed for chickens, but I've been using it successfully for years. So this Flubenvet will do internal parasites such as worms, and the external parasites, so your mites and so on, the Xeno is really effective against. If you've used any of these products, you do have to withdraw any of your eggs for at least a week to 10 days. So you do have to waste some eggs and throw them, but for the purposes of keeping your chickens healthy, it's certainly worth doing. You need to take advice from your vet really with any types of treatment. But you just need to be aware with these Xeno that they are little pipettes. If any of you have dogs or cats and you've used a flea treatment on them, it's the same type of thing, but you can't use a whole pipette on a chicken, so you have to take advice from your vet on how many drops you need to put onto your chicken. So it's done per kilo of body weight, and your vet would advise you on that. So that's those. We also have this spray. This is just the one that we use. It's really effective. We spray their inside of their coop with this, but not when the birds are around, because this is an aerosol. Birds are really susceptible to respiratory issues, so you must be careful. But a couple of times a year, we will clean out the whole of the coop We'll pressure wash it, let it dry. We use diatomaceous earth, which we will sprinkle all around the wood and onto the bedding. But before we put the bedding in, we give it a really good spray with this as well, and that's to help keep any sort of mites, particularly red mite, away. So yeah, worm treatment and external parasite treatment, really, really important. And prevention is better than cure, so don't wait till you've got a problem. Take advice from your vet, because everybody will do a slightly different regime, but fairly regularly across the year you do need it, keep it on your calendar and make sure that they're getting regular treatments. And then another useful piece of kit to have is just a standard bucket. This is a feeding bucket for either horses or livestock, and it's quite shallow. It's quite useful, the shallow one, because you can fit a chicken in it quite well. I don't routinely bath my chickens, however occasionally they will get a messy bottom, and it's really important to keep that clean. If you don't keep them clean, especially through the summer months, you're going to be susceptible with your chickens to fly strike. For those of you that don't know about that, the blowfly will lay eggs on any messy, smelly area. It's not just chickens that are prone to it. Rabbits are also very prone, and sheep. They will then hatch into maggots, and it really isn't very nice. The maggots will actually, they'll be burrowing into the flesh of the animal, and sadly, as a veterinary nurse, I see this all too often. Again, prevention is better than cure, so daily checking of bottoms and any that are a little bit mucky. You can just sort of pick or brush some of it off, but if they're particularly messy, it's worth a little bit of soapy warm water. I use a very, very mild, it's actually a nettle shampoo for my birds, but again, you can take advice from your local sort of feed merchant or vet on what is a good shampoo to use. But something very mild, and obviously, you're not going to be doing that on a freezing cold day. You need to make sure it's warm, and that, they've got the opportunity to dry. So it makes sense to do it sort of in the morning in the warmth, so that they can then dry before they go to bed. You don't want to be putting wet birds to bed. So I think I've just about covered everything there. So essentially, it's wonderful keeping birds. It's so enjoyable with chickens. And the bonus is, you get daily eggs from them. So, the most important things, they need a safe enclosure. They need watertight area to sleep in. So, a chuck house. They need clean feeding vessels. Again, there's so many out there. You can choose whatever you want, and then you're going to need to think about your sort of veterinary side of things. So, you must be able to transport them to a vet if they need treatment, so you need a carrier, and also that's for getting them home in the first instance. And you're going to need to think about treating them for any sorts of parasites. And yeah, get yourself a good vet. Most vets will be happy to treat chickens, but it's worth finding out in advance, and asking around to find out, where is a good chicken vet who will help to look after them if they're sick. So I think we've just pretty much covered everything. For those of you that keep chickens, you'll know how rewarding it can be. And for anybody who's thinking about starting out, go for it. You've got absolutely nothing to lose. They're wonderful, wonderful, rewarding birds. If you're thinking about starting out, I would suggest going for just 2 or 3 birds to start with. You can always build your flock, but it's just nice starting with just a few. So I hope you found that informative. I hope it might be useful to some of you thinking about getting chickens to now, kind of bite the bullet and go out and get some. I would say the most important advice would be prepared. Don't get the chickens home and then go, oh my goodness, we need all these things. Get your area prepared, get all your bits and pieces. Go and visit people that have got chickens. You can go to places that sell chickens, even if you're not going to get them from there. The British Hen Welfare Trust, they've got a brilliant website, and they'll give you lots and lots of advice. They have lots of fact sheets and so on to help you. So get some advice, be prepared, and go out and get some chickens and enjoy them. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all enjoying a wonderful bank holiday weekend. We are here. Those of you that might be new to my channel, please consider subscribing and hit that bell to get notifications of all my latest videos of life here on our little farm. Take care, see you all soon. Bye.